Paul, what am I doing?
You're getting geared up.
I'm getting geared up. You know why? I'm so excited that my Homefield Apparel sweatshirt came in because it is the most comfortable sweatshirt I've ever worn in my life. And guess what? This episode of Unified is brought to you in part by Homefield Apparel. What are the odds? Paul, are you bored with all the cookie cutter t-shirts for your favorite college sports teams? Well, guess what? Homefield Apparel, a premier brand based out of Indianapolis, home of the Final Four this year, offers incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college sports design. So you won't look like everybody else wearing the same Nike or Adidas or any other company's t-shirt. Homefield combs through historic collections to find unique logos, mascots, and other graphics, and then uses those graphics to make thoughtful designs for schools as large as the University of Alabama and as small as a Division III school like Hope College. You can check them out at homefieldapparel.com and get 15% off your first order with the checkout code UNIFIED. That's homefieldapparel.com, checkout code UNIFIED for 15% off.
Hello and welcome to Unified. I am Paul Lukas of UniWatch. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Chris Creamer of SportsLogos.Net. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Paul.
And we have an interesting show for you this week. Instead of having one big topic that we're devoting the show, the lion's share of the show to, we have a bunch of sort of medium topics that all deserve some time, and we're going to spend some time on all of them. And so we are going to talk about Major League Baseball's annual Mother's Day caps, which have been released this week. We are going to then pivot to the NFL and talk about the possibility of the NFL changing its uniform numbering rules, which they're going to be voting on soon. Then we're going to talk about Jackie Robinson Day in Major League Baseball, which is coming up this Thursday, which is the day that this episode goes live. Then we're going to talk about the new WNBA uniforms and the ongoing saga of the Atlanta Braves memorial patches for Henry Aaron and Phil Niekro and what happens to the All-Star Game patch. But before we get to all of that, Chris, what's been going on with you?
Nothing.
Nothing? I hear it's been a little more than nothing.
Well, Ontario's doing great with this pandemic thing. Well, you guys are getting all set to run out of your houses and enjoy the spring. We're back in a stay-at-home order. A brand new one just was imposed by the government about 4 or 5 days ago. And it's just getting a little out of hand. Today, they announced schools were being closed now. So when our spring break, which is ongoing right now, when that ends, my kids stay at home. That's what happened last year, right?
Right. Is there a certain Groundhog Day element to this where like you thought you were past that? Because your kids were home for a long time and then they finally got to go back to school, right?
Yeah. So last year, the spring break started mid-March and then it never ended. It never ended. Our kids didn't go back to school until February the next year. They went back for 6 weeks and now we're back again. So, we're used to this. We have a plan at least, but it'd be nice. Right now, I want to live in America. Share some of those vaccines with me if you can. Unless it's illegal, then I didn't recommend it.
It's a very different story than what's going on here, where my girlfriend just got her second vaccination shot. I had my second one a few weeks prior. So yeah, we are moving a little more toward getting back to some semblance of normalcy. And I'm really sorry to hear that you're not yet. And but it's a good reality check and a reminder that, the pandemic isn't really over yet. And it's not done with, the virus isn't done with us yet. So hang in there. And obviously my best to you and your family to stay safe.
Thank you very much. I have vaccine envy. I love watching all the tweets and Facebook posts though of my friends who are much younger than me getting their second shots. It's, I'm very happy for them, but I'm also very envious of their situation,
which is understandable. Yeah. All right. Well, hang in there, and let's try to distract you from that.
Oh, good. I hope we have some uniform.
Talking about some uniform stuff. So we can start with Major League Baseball has rolled out the first wave of its annual holiday gear, and that would be the pink accented caps for Mother's Day. Mother's Day is next month in May. I think May 9th, I believe, is the date.
I should know.
I should know. I think it's May 9th. And over the years, they've done so many different versions of these, with a pink crown or a pink brim or pink logo or pink. all the different possibilities. This year, they've kept it very simple. Basically, it's every team's normal cap with their normal logo in pink, just the regular logo in pink, except for a few exceptions to that. The biggest of which is that the Oakland A's have, instead of their familiar A logo in pink, they have this sort of Gothic O for Oakland in pink. And people quickly noticed that it matches the O that was on their road jerseys when they first moved to Oakland in the late 1960s. And so it's the O from that chest insignia that they had at the time. What it reminded me of is the sort of Gothic Old English C that the Reds sometimes use for Cincinnati. It's a very similar style. And man, does it look weird in pink on a green cap. But people are speculating like, oh, is this going to be a new logo for the A's in some way? Is it going to be an alternate cap in their normal colors, or is this a way to sort of test the waters for that? And it is sort of odd that the A's were I think the only team to do that. All the other teams have pretty much their basic logos, their cap logos that we're used to seeing. Yeah, you're very sort of plugged into Major League Baseball. You have more contacts there right now than I do. And are these the same caps that they were planning to use last year when all the holiday games got canceled by the pandemic?
I don't know, but I think so. We never got to see what the caps were going to look like last year. I never got to. Usually I was given a little early access, but it would be once the season already started. We never got to that point last year. And of course, there were no games on holidays last year at all, right? The season started after the 4th of July.
Right.
So we never had the opportunity to. My guess is they're just rolling out what they were going to wear last year. Why waste all that stock and all that stuff they would have produced? And it gives the designers a year off, right. A year that they could use off. As for the design this year, I got to say, of all the Mother's Day caps that we've seen, this is probably my favorite. Just because it feels like an actual team cap, right? Like aside from the pink logo, there's a ribbon on the side and that's it. Now it does look like about 20 years ago, I bought a Philadelphia Phillies cap and I wore it out in the rain and all the red ran into the white P, turning into a pink P. And so, I mean, I was just 25 years early. I have the Phillies Mother's Day cap in 2021.
Yeah, there were a lot of jokes about how the caps look like they were put in the laundry with a red sock, right? Something like that, or a red T-shirt, and the red dye bled on the logos and turned them pink. I got to say, that the whole cliche of pink for women seems so overdone at this point in our cultural history. It seems like we should get past that. There's got to be a better way. If there needs to be, does there even need to be any way to have a cap for Mother's Day? But if there is one, pink just seems like a really lame cliche at this point, and it doesn't look good for most of the teams. You know, there are a few like the one for the Marlins. It actually works with their color scheme, and a lot of other Miami teams, like in soccer and some other sports, have used pink. The Miami Heat have used pink for alternate uniform. So pink seems to work better for the Marlins one, but most of them just look terrible. You know, I gotta say, it's I'm not a fan of this promotion. I never have been. And to say that, yeah, this one is probably the best. It seems like the best of a bad lot, or the least objectionable, I suppose. One thing I am curious about is, will there be matching jerseys? Because for many years, they had pink jerseys to go with the pink caps. Although I think the last time they did that was 2018.
Yeah,
they didn't do it in 2019. They went back to just the caps. Last year, of course, the games were canceled. It's not. Do you know if they were planning to do jersey? You don't know.
I don't know. No.
I'm hoping there won't be the pink jerseys, because to me that just makes it even worse. I always thought for Mother's Day the Cardinals should have like the female Cardinals on the bat. You know, like not the red ones, but the sort of grayish.
What are they, like beige or something?
Yeah, it's like a beige. Yeah, looks a little washed out, but that's what a female Cardinal looks like. I always thought that would be great for, like, they're the one team that could actually do it right.
Right. Yeah. Well, a female.
But instead, when they did do the Mother's Day jerseys, of course they had pink Cardinals. Just like, come
on. My understanding is that they are not planning jerseys to go with these. I can't get 100% confirmation, but that's what I've been hearing. And my guess is that, you know, the reason why they didn't wear them in 19, the reason why they're not wearing them now, is that whole transition to Nike thing that's been going on. Now, this is just me theorizing, but I figure next year is going to be the same thing. There's not going to
But
be.
they'll go back to the jerseys, you mean?
No. I think next year, because next year's the first year of the new Nike cut.
So it's still part of the transition. You're saying.
Yeah, still part of the transition.
See, I'm going to theorize that maybe they stopped doing the jerseys because they finally hit bottom in how many jerseys people will buy. Like, it's one thing to buy a cap, but like how many different pink jerseys are people actually going to purchase? Which is obviously the only reason these things get worn. It's not really an on-field thing. It's a merchandising thing.
Right.
And at some point, maybe you just sort of you reach the point of diminishing returns, and it's just not worth doing a separate jersey.
It sounds like you're daring them, Paul. Find how many jerseys they can find before people stop buying them. But it's for a good cause.
Yeah, but you can donate to like a cancer cause without buying a jersey. I just question how many of these jerseys.
Yeah, and they don't share that information.
No, they don't. Now, have they shared the information as to whether these will be worn only on the holiday itself or for the full weekend? Because for a few years there, they were doing these sort of wraparound things where, like, I think it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for the full holiday, as if Mother's Day and Father's Day are considered like 3-day holiday weekends, which they're not.
No.
And if a holiday, like if the 4th of July was on a Tuesday, they would do it like for 4 days, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 5 days, whatever it was. And then I think in 2019, just as they stopped wearing the holiday jerseys, they also stopped doing the full weekend treatment, except for the 4th of July
and Armed Forces Day weekend.
Oh, was that a full weekend treatment as well?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah.
So there was just the two. So I don't think they've announced whether it'll be this year, if it'll be just the holiday or for the full weekend. Do you have any information on that?
I don't. My guess is again, it's just going to be the same as it was in 2019. I think they'll wear the Mother's Day cap and Father's Day caps on the respective days. And then you'll see the same Armed Forces Day, 4th of July. And then, are they going to wear that patch again on, the actual July 4th? That's what they did, right? They wore a special patch on the 4th.
Yeah, there was a patch. Yeah.
Yeah. And those, by the way, those 5-day 4th of July weekends were a lot of fun when, like, the Red Sox would come to Toronto on Canada Day and they're wearing stars and stripes from head to toe as they're beating the snot out of my team on our national holiday. Invading.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think that was the first use of the word snot on the Unified Podcast.
But not the last.
So, yeah, it's not clear whether they're going to do the full wraparound holiday thing.
As long as they wear the poppies on Memorial Day again, because I thought that was
right, because they stopped wearing special caps and jerseys from, like, doing camouflage from Memorial Day, which I had been saying for years. Memorial Day is not really a military holiday; it's a day of mourning, and they switched to doing the poppies in 2019, I believe.
Yeah, all the big changes happened in 19.
Which was a welcome change, and I really commend them for that. One thing that it also seems a little different is that in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, haven't they unveiled all of the holiday gear all at once? Like Mother's Day, Father's Day, like all in one big shot.
Yeah, and it was usually right around now. I think it was
in mid-April.
Yeah, and they do them all at once. I wonder why they're not doing it this year. I wonder if perhaps there's some fear that maybe they won't get to play the games and they don't want to get ahead of themselves. Again, I'm not basing that off of anything official, just something I'm coming up with as we're talking. But yeah, that is a little unusual. Maybe they want to give every holiday its own special unveiling. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, just like they're doing with the City Connect uniforms, where each team is getting its own instead of a league-wide treatment. So maybe it's a shift in approach for Major League Baseball. But it is a little different for us because I'm used to this sort of onslaught or avalanche of, like, imagine like opening the door to a closet and all these caps just come.
I've had nightmares that start that way. And that's like a 260 or something new uniforms, jerseys, and caps all at once. Those were fun weeks. Preparing those.
So it's a little more measured this time. It's for your friendly uniform writer and reporter and columnist. Yes. It's a little easier. Yeah,
we appreciate nothing worse than, say, one league unveiling like 30 uniforms, and then as that's happening, a team unveils a new uniform like in another league all at once. It's come on, guys, spread it out, please. Show some mercy. Oh man.
So all right, you mentioned that this is all for a good cause.
Yes.
The proceeds go to breast cancer research. It's
Right.
been breast cancer awareness and blah, blah, blah.
Which is why it's pink, because the ribbon is pink.
Yes.
Yes.
On balance, do you think it's a good thing to do the blue, which is for prostate cancer, for Father's Day? Or do you think these things have sort of served their purpose and it's time for Major League Baseball to get out of the cancer awareness holiday merchandising business?
I think it depends if it's actually raising any money. If they found that it's like, because you say, oh, if you want to make a donation, you can just make a donation. But a lot of people won't do that unless, and you could say selfishly, they're getting something in return. So they put these uniforms up for auction, the game worn jerseys. There's a big market for that. A lot of people will buy anything that's game worn and spend hundreds of dollars more than what they're worth at retail, just for the fact that it was worn in a game and that it's something special and different. So if they're actually, getting enough money to make a difference or make a sizable contribution to these charities, I see no harm in it being a one-day thing. But if this isn't doing anything at all, and now it's just sort of for show, maybe it's time to move on.
I'm sort of surprised I mean, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they've ever announced this year we raised X amount. Nope. That's so much more than last year. Or what? It's always a little surprising to me. You'd think they would.
And I've seen people tweeting, and I don't know if they're being honest or not, where they've asked the league for numbers, and they just don't get a response. So maybe the numbers are disappointing, and they just don't want to share that. But I mean, at least it's for a good reason, right? We can all agree that the ends is, but too many jerseys, whatever.
All right, turning to a topic that has no really, redeeming social value except on a uniform level. The NFL is reportedly set to approve new rules for uniform numbers. And this is a rule change that was proposed by the Kansas City Chiefs at the recent ownership meetings, which is the spring meetings. Teams can bring up proposed rule changes. Also, the competition committee comes up with rule changes. Those are the ones that are usually approved, the ones that come from the competition committee. It is rare for a rule change proposed by an individual team to get approved, but Peter King, who's probably the best known and the best sourced NFL reporter, has reported that this rule, which was proposed by the Chiefs, is probably going to pass. And the Chiefs put it up for as a proposition because reportedly they almost ran out of uniform numbers last season between players that were injured, players that were whether on the taxi squad or whatever, that because of the positional restrictions on which positions can wear which numbers in the NFL, they almost ran out of numbers. And so they are proposing a sort of more lenient set of numbering rules for the NFL. And I have it here that quarterbacks, punters, and kickers will still wear 1 through 19. That's no change. Running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends can wear 1 through 49 and 80 through 89. So the big change there is that those skill positions, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, could wear single-digit numbers if they choose. Defensive backs could wear 1 through 49. Again, single digits would be new. Linebackers could wear 1 through 59 and 90 to 99. Offensive linemen, 50 to 79, that's no change. Defensive linemen, 50 to 79 and 90 to 99, that's no change. I have been surprised. Let me back up and say, this seems like a super geeky kind of, niche, sub-niche of the universe that only people like you or I, or maybe just me, because I know you're not really a numbers guy, but that not every fan would be that into. And I've been surprised on social media to see how many fans have really been engaging with this storyline and how many teams have been engaging with it by tweeting mock-ups of some of their players being able to change numbers. And the big thing is that the NCAA has looser restrictions than the NFL. And so there's a lot of players like for example, Saints running back Alvin Kamara. He wore number 6 in college at the University of Tennessee, but as a running back, he is not currently able to wear number 6 in the NFL. So he wears number 41. But in fact, his Twitter handle is actually A Kamara 6 based on his old college number. So if this rule change passed, he could go back to wearing his college number. And that's what teams have been tweeting a lot of mock-ups of. a lot of players could go back to wearing their college numbers.
Mhm.
I remember when Deion Sanders was playing, he wore number 2 at Florida State, couldn't wear that as a defensive back in the NFL, but always wore it in practice. His practice jersey was always number 2, no matter which team he was on. And because he loved that number, but he wasn't allowed to wear it in a game in the NFL.
So Paul, so sorry to interrupt.
No. I was rambling long enough. Please interrupt.
For somebody who is not well versed in NFL football number rules, is there a reason why they have these positional blocks?
Well, the most important thing is that on offense, you have eligible and ineligible receivers, right? Like only certain players are allowed to touch the ball. Certain number of players have to be at the line of scrimmage. A certain number have to be in the backfield, and those players have to be eligible receivers. And so it makes sense on offense to have, certain numbers be eligible and certain numbers not be eligible. And, so we always hear about a tackle eligible play where some like 325-pound guy, reports to the ref as an eligible receiver. And, normally he's an offensive lineman, but on this play, he's a tight end. And then he catches a touchdown pass, and everybody, has fun looking at that highlight at the big hulking guy who doesn't usually get to touch the ball because he's not normally an eligible receiver, and he's wearing, 79 or whatever, the ineligible number would be. Mm-hmm. I have never understood why a wide receiver can't wear number 2 or whatever the case might be, why a tight end. I mean, we think of a tight end, like he's got to wear like a number, usually an odd number in the 80s, like 87 or 89 or 85. Mm-hmm. Those feel like tight end numbers, or maybe a number in the high 40s, like 49 or something like that. But there's no reason aside from just what we're used to seeing, to me, that a tight end can't wear number 1. Like it seems a little off, but like, why not? And I've never understood why defensive players, why that can't be a free for all. Like there are no eligible or ineligible receivers on defense. Like why not just let anyone on defense wear any number? I've never heard a coherent explanation for why that should be the case. And in fact, at one point, I'm pretty sure there were no restrictions when I was very young, like in the early 70s, when I first started watching pro football and saw old photos from like the 60s. I'm pretty sure at that point the defense could wear whatever they wanted. And so it's interesting. And you have seen some teams and some players saying like, oh, I hope I get to get my old college number back. And it's interesting to see how this has been a slightly bigger storyline than I would have expected. What are the, I don't know the rules. What are the rules in the CFL?
I have no idea. I mean, football is football to me. I'm not into it. I just want to know, like, if the NCAA can do this, why can't the NFL? Like, what's the difference there?
There are some people I've heard saying that this is one of the things that is sort of an endearing distinction between college football and pro football. That in college football, you can see a safety or a cornerback wearing number 3, but you can't do that in the NFL. And that's one thing that makes pro football and that kind of thing. Personally, I say open it up. Like I think it would be fun to see a defensive back in a single digit number or a wide receiver in a single digit number. I think that would be great. Frankly, I don't see why a quarterback can't have a number in the 20s or 30s. If a running back, he's an eligible receiver. Like I don't have a problem with that. That they're not proposing that. They want to keep the quarterbacks, kickers, and punters in the 1 to 19 range. Mm-hmm. The one thing I'm disappointed about is that there's nothing in this proposal about 0 and 00. Yeah. Like bring those back, man. Like Jim Otto and Ken, we've talked about this before in our Heroes of Zeros episode, but come on, man. There's no reason not to have at least one. If you don't want to do 0 and 00 as legal numbers, at least bring one of them back.
Right. Because what position is eligible for the number 0?
College just brought it back this past year. The NCAA brought back 0 as a legal, not brought it back. I think it's the first time they've ever had it as a legal number, and teams were giving it out all over. It was anywhere on defense, and I believe it was considered an eligible number on offense.
So it was like a wild card number.
And they were sort of giving it out as almost like as a reward or an incentive. Like this year, especially because it was the first season of doing it. So the first Virginia Tech player ever to wear number 0, or whatever school it is, the first USC player. They made it sort of an honor to get to wear number 0. And many of the schools said they would rotate it, that next season we'll have a different number 0. And it was because it does stand out, and it does have a sort of mystique or different feel to it than any of the other numbers. And I think that would be cool for the NFL to do that. And I think it's a little disappointing that while they're at least talking about opening up the number ranges a bit, that they're not including 0 or 00 in there. But I do hope the rule change passes. I'm rooting for it. And I hope that'll make things a little more interesting from a uni-numerical standpoint in the NFL.
I think it's great. I think they should make the change, obviously. It seems silly to me that like you get these marquee players coming up from the NCAA. You get to the NFL, they have to change their number, right? Like that's almost part of their identity now. And I mean,
well, especially if it's part of their Twitter handle.
Exactly. But just imagine like Michael Jordan goes to the NBA and they're like, sorry, you can't wear 23 anymore. No, they did that to him in the Olympics, but like in the NBA where it seems silly. And it sort of lives up to the NFL's reputation of being no fun.
Yeah, but if they change it, then
there'll be lots of fun, right? Then there'll be parties, and
this will single-handedly make the NFL more fun.
That's right. Quarterbacks can wear the high top shoes again. And
so we're in agreement that we're both rooting for this to happen.
Of course, I can't think of any reason why it shouldn't happen, unless it's really that hard for the officials to tell who's eligible and who's ineligible based on these numbers. But again, if college refs can do it, surely the NFL refs can handle it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Chris, do you have a special message for our listeners?
I sure do. Listeners, listen up. If you're looking for really unique sports apparel, check out our friends at Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and brought back some incredible defunct team logos. And they've even created entire defunct league collections. Most recently, they've launched new t-shirt designs from the Continental Basketball League, the North American Hockey League, which is that 70s league that inspired the movie Slapshot. Every couple of weeks, they release more teams and leagues. So if you're a fan of retro style and sports history, they're a fun brand to follow. They also have collections celebrating sports culture, including a licensed Miracle on Ice collection and apparel from movies like Caddyshack. They even have an exclusive apparel license with Wiffle Ball Paul. Check them out at streakersports.com and get 20% off with checkout code UNIFIED. Again, that is streakersports.com. Checkout code UNIFIED for 20% off.
Moving on to our next topic. We are recording this on Tuesday, April 13th, but the episode is going to go live on Thursday, the 15th, and that is Jackie Robinson Day, Major League Baseball's annual celebration of the anniversary of Jackie Robinson's Major League debut. And as has been the case in all the recent years, all uniformed personnel will be wearing number 42. Now, I had to refresh my memory on the whole sequence of events of how they got to the current protocol or the current ritual of Jackie Robinson Day. And so here's a quick recap. Major League Baseball retired number 42 on a league-wide basis in 1997. I remember President Clinton was actually on hand at Shea Stadium to make that announcement or be part of that announcement. It was the 50th anniversary of Robinson's debut. Players who were already wearing number 42 at that time were grandfathered, and it wouldn't be until 2013 that the last of those players retired, and that was Mariano Rivera of the Yankees. 10 years after the league-wide retirement of 42, Ken Griffey Jr. asked for permission to wear number 42 on April 15th. He asked the commissioner's office. Bud Selig, who was the commissioner at the time, agreed and encouraged each team to allow one player to wear 42 that day. And the movement kind of snowballed and grew. And I remember like every day you would hear more players saying, I'm going to wear it too, or our whole team is going to wear it, or, well, on our team, we're only going to have one player wear it because we don't want it to sort of water it down. And it was sort of a hodgepodge, but it was a snowballing hodgepodge, if you will. Yeah. And I believe the number of players who wore number 42 that day in 2007 was about 240 players. That number grew to 330 players the following year, 2008. And then in 2009, they decided to just make it official, have everybody, all uniformed personnel, including players, coaches, managers, everybody would wear number 42 without a name on the back, which drives the broadcasters crazy because everybody looks the same. But that has been the standard thing since 2009. I have to say, I've always loved Jackie Robinson Day. For years, I've said it's Bud Selig's one unqualified success of his commissionership. I have heard over the years a lot of people say it's kind of too much. It's enough already. It waters it down by having every single player do it. The original idea was to have one player per team do it. And while I aside from liking the tribute to Jackie Robinson, I kind of like seeing all the 42s out there with no names on the back. I like that for one day. The game looks a little different. I guess maybe that's like some people like to see pink on the field for Mother's Day for one day. I really enjoy the sort of the oddity, especially for a number that we're not used to seeing. Like that in and of itself looks sort of striking to see 42 on the field nowadays. But I have started to rethink the idea of whether it's best to have everybody wear it, or if it would be better to have one player per season per team wear it. And maybe it's time to consider that. What do you think of Jackie Robinson Day, Chris?
I think it's great. I mean, Jackie Robinson's somebody who's worthy of recognition in Major League Baseball at a level that nobody else is. The 42 worn by everybody, I go back and forth on this all the time in my head. I'm like, is it more symbolic or more striking just to see one player wear it, or to see the whole league wear it is sort of attention grabbing. And while we were talking about the NCAA and wearing 0 as an honor, it got me thinking. And let me know what you think about this. What if every season a team got to pick one player to wear 42 for the entire year? No name on the back, just 42 on the back of the jersey. And then on April 15th, the rest of the team joins them for that one day. What do you think about that idea?
That's a great idea. Oh, and you just came you just came up with that just now while we were
just as you were talking.
Wow. I kind of dig that idea, I have to say. So there would be like the one 42er per team.
Yes.
Season long.
Yeah.
And then on April 15th, the whole team would still do it.
That's right.
I kind of like that idea.
And does it rotate every year? You get a new player gets 42 every season, or do you stick with it? Yeah.
Chris make Creamer, it a promotional genius.
Well, I work in marketing. One time on the front of the Toronto Star, it said marketing expert Chris Creamer. So I have that feather in my cap. I think that would be a great idea. It could be a whole thing every year. Who gets to be 42 this season? Mm-hmm. Maybe the players can vote on it for every team. Maybe the fans can vote on it. Yeah, I'm already thinking of how the ways Major League Baseball could make money off of it. but I think that would be a good way to do it. And but for April 15th, if we're talking for the one day, I like the whole team wearing it. Like you say, there's no visual more striking on that day than just seeing the whole team lined up with 42s on the back, no names, everybody's the same, everybody's equal. It sort of gets that message across.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Now, assuming they're not going to see the genius of your vision, if you could only have the current setup where everybody wears it, or the original idea, Junior Griffey's idea, where just one player wears it, which do you think is the way to go at this point in time? Now that they've been doing it for over a decade with everybody wearing it,
I think they stick with the whole team doing it. I think you got to do that. It's such a special day. That let's get the whole league involved. Let's make it so you can't ignore it. Like if you're watching a game, it's Jackie Robinson Day. There's no escaping it. That message is being broadcast to you, and so I think it's too important. It needs to be out there for the whole day, and the whole league needs to do it. And that's my thought on that. What about you?
So we'll be seeing that in a couple of days.
Yes.
The day that this episode goes live. I think 22 of the 30 major league teams are scheduled to play that day, and the ones that aren't usually get a sort of make-up opportunity on a different date so that everybody gets to participate every year. Now, some fans, I've been hearing this for years, have been lobbying for a similar holiday on the baseball calendar, a similar commemoration to be done for Larry Doby, who was the first Black player in the American League. And because the league, there was no interleague play at that time and all that, it faced really a lot of the same barriers and obstacles that Robinson faced, a lot of the same heckling, a lot of the same abuse. What do you think of that? Should there be a separate day for Larry Doby where everybody wears his number?
I think Larry Doby is underappreciated in history. As you say, he received just as much abuse as Jackie Robinson did. Back then, the American and National League were two separate leagues. So fans never got to see the Dodgers in American League ballparks, for example. But for this honor, I think this is such a high honor in baseball. Like, think about it, right? Like the entire league is wearing one player's number. I can't think of any higher honor for a baseball player. It really should be reserved for one player. And I think Jackie Robinson's that one guy to get it. I do think Larry Doby does deserve his own day, perhaps not to this extent. And I know this is probably something you're going to bring up later, is for Larry Doby, something similar to Roberto Clemente Day, where all the players wear a patch remembering Larry. They're going to do this for Lou Gehrig as well this year. They should do it for Larry if they're going to do it for Lou. So he does get his appreciation that he deserves, and we can make this an annual thing. I'm not, Larry Doby's story is so untold that, like, even here talking to you, I don't know what number Larry Doby wore. And I don't know what day he made his debut on. I know he played for Cleveland, and I know he was the first in the American League. And that's about the extent of my knowledge of Larry Doby, sadly. And that's a problem. And that's just one example of why baseball should be doing more to help us recognize and hear his story and know more about him.
I agree with just about everything you said there. I think for this type of thing, there really can only be one first. And Jackie Robinson changed history, not just baseball history, but American history, and I guess Canadian history too, right? With the Montreal Royals,
that's right,
where he played in the minor leagues, and it's no knock on Larry Doby, no slight to him, and certainly no slight intended when I say that I feel this type of commemoration really should be restricted to one man, and that man is Jackie Robinson. You mentioned Roberto Clemente. I have to say, I didn't even realize that Roberto Clemente Day had been a day on the baseball calendar. It's like a floating date sometime in early September. It's not a fixed date. And I did not realize that until last year when they brought a uniform component to it for the first time. And they had never done that before. Up until then, they just had like a little speech that was said, before a game or some announcement or some press release or whatever. So it was the first time they had this commemoration with a uniform aspect to it. For Roberto Clemente. They have not yet said if they're going to do that again this year or if it's going to become an annual thing. I've read that the Pirates have actually lobbied for it to be a thing. Like they want to keep doing it somewhat understandably. And I would imagine Puerto Rican players around the league want to keep doing it as well. What do you think of this one day tribute to Roberto Clemente?
I think the way they did it last year was great. I think, but I would have every player wear the 21 patch on their jersey. Is that not what they did last year? I can't remember. They had
patches, but then again, several players went further than just wearing a patch. Okay. Some Puerto Rican players actually changed their uniform number for the day. And it's interesting because it used to be your number was your number. It is much more fluid now of having these special events or tributes or whatever, and players will change their number for the event. I think it was the NC State baseball team. The whole team wore number 26 just a few days ago as I don't recall if it was a memorial or a tribute to an injured player or something along those lines. But there wasn't a lot of announcement ahead of time. They just all showed up that day with number 26. And obviously college baseball is not the same as the big leagues. And you can sort of bend the rules and get away with certain things and be more flexible. But still, I feel like in general, that numbers, like most other aspects of the uniform, are becoming more of a vehicle for expression and communication and telling a story instead of just this is the number you're assigned. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that. And I think we're going to keep seeing more of it in terms of commemorating people and types of people who have been either under-recognized or not celebrated as much as they should have been, or whose stories have gone untold. And I think that notion of the uniform number as something that can express a story as opposed to just, that's your number, kid, is probably something we're going to see more of.
That's beautifully spoken, Paul.
Well, thank you, Chris. Let's move on to our next topic, which is that the WNBA is gearing up for its 25th season, a landmark season. And they are marking that with a full new slate of uniforms. They just unveiled it for all their teams. And you had pretty deep coverage of this. Why don't you tell us about the WNBA uniforms?
Sure. Well, Nike, they have assigned, similar to how the NBA is doing the icon association statement uniforms. It seems like they're now doing that in the WNBA. But it's led to this really upgraded sort of quality in the WNBA's uniforms, right? They look big league now, right? Like they look like you can take them a lot more seriously. Uh,
Well,
First,
a big part of that, right, is that they no longer have the ad
yes,
like
not
across
totally.
the chest
Right.
as if the team was called Verizon or AT&T or whatever. Like they've moved the ads sometimes to the belly,
Right.
sometimes to the back, like below the back number, sometimes to the shoulder area where the NBA has
Yeah,
ad
yeah.
patches, or some combination of those
Yeah.
things. So, because
Uh,
some
mo-
teams,
but most importantly, they have the team name, they have the team logo, is the primary driving force behind this,
right,
right?
instead of the ad, by moving the ad, they've allowed themselves to have basic, straightforward team insignias on the chest again.
And because of that, they look like a major league now. Now, I know there is an ad on it, but it's, compared to what we had before, right? It's almost like this is silly, but it's the first thing that came into my mind. My wife didn't want me to grow a beard. So what I did was I grew it really, really big and bushy, and then I trimmed it a little, and she said, "Oh, that looks good." So what the WNBA did was they put a big giant ad on the jersey. Everyone said that looks ridiculous. Okay, let's make it small and underneath the number. Oh, that looks good. So now we have what they wanted in the first place.
I think this is also the same mechanism that was at work with the pink Major League Baseball caps. That
There you
they
go.
had the full pink cap, and now
Yes.
they've trimmed it back to just the little pink logo.
Right. And now I think it looks great. So there you go. It works. That these people, I guess, are they're playing three-dimensional chess, as they like to say. So the WNBA's uniform series now, it's the heroine, the explorer, and the rebel. And if you'll notice, the first letter of each of those spells out HER for her. They're calling it the her uniform system. Like the NBA, where every association uniform is white. Paul, you'll be happy about this. The heroine uniform is white. The WNBA is bringing back white uniforms,
Right,
which
because they didn't have white for like a long time,
yeah, it
right?
was like 2 or 3 years they didn't have white uniforms, which we thought was a little weird at the time, but
Yeah.
it was a great experiment in whether color on color will work for every game.
Mm-hmm.
And
I am glad they've brought back white. I'm also glad that by changing the format on the front of the jersey, there's room now for a number on the front,
yes,
which hadn't been the case. That was another thing that to me made them not look big league, as you said, that they didn't have a front number, that it was basically just the ad,
yeah.
and that was so big and splashy that there was no room for either a team insignia or a number. And so now front numbers have returned, and it looks more like a basketball uniform.
Now, beyond design, what's really important here is that this is the first time that a uniform company has actually listened to female players to find out how they want this jersey cut to work for them and their body shape and style. So they have unique collars. There's a little more room in the chest area of the jersey, and it's cut more so that it works, which is nice. Which is something, if these are professional athletes, they should get a uniform design that fits them rather than having to fit into like a male cut jersey. But it with the they're doing the Rebel Edition jersey, which is like the NBA's City Edition, where the uniform doesn't match the design of the rest of the set whatsoever. Right? It looks like it's probably a one season thing that's coming and going. So I mean, is another step where the WNBA is trying to be a little more big league. This is something they do in the big leagues now, where teams get special 1 year only jerseys.
I mean,
And
they get to be as stupid as the NBA is, basically, from a uniform standpoint. Like,
well, yeah, that's big
they
league.
get to be as big league stupid. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's the way it is now, Paul, whether we like it
Yeah,
or
yeah.
not.
I gotta say, I mean, you could, for people watching on video, you could probably see my eyes glaze over when the talk of like the Rebel Edition, and I just can't take the terms that they use. There are three collar cuts on these uniforms: a basic
Yeah.
scoop neck, a basic V neck, and something called the Victory collar. I mean, give me a break. Like, it's just,
that's
not, that's not the players' fault or anything like that. That's no knock on the league or the players.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit of a knock on the league because they went along with it. I just can't take that stuff seriously. To me, it's embarrassing. To me, that's not big league.
Well, you and I can change the names if we want.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Believe me, I won't be saying victory collar anytime soon after this episode.
I mean, the white jersey could be the home, the dark could be the road, and the
just the white. I'll call the white one the white one.
Why not? I mean, who cares? It's up to us to decide what these uniforms are called, anyways, right? I mean,
right. But I do think some of them look pretty good. I think the New York Liberty one in particular looks good. I was disappointed by the ones that still have the ad at the belly area, like the Chicago Sky one. Like it's not a good look. Like, to me, that having the ad there, especially because in some cases it's going to look even worse because it's going to be partially tucked in, or it's sort of a wrinkly area of the jersey, like because it's at the torso and where the player's bending over, and it's not a good look to have it's not a good look to have an ad on your jersey to begin with, but especially to have it in that spot, I feel like does not look good. But it is interesting, I'll say, that there's a variety of placements for these ads, that it's not just a cookie cutter template where everybody has it in the same place. So that's sort of interesting and not what I would have expected. And hopefully the ones that are in the less pleasing looking spots will get moved. Putting it in the back, to me, is the place to put it. Like, I'd rather have it. If you have to have it, I'd rather have it there.
Right. I wonder if some of these teams, now I don't know, I'm just guessing again, I wonder if some of these teams had existing deals in place where they had to have a big ad on the front, and maybe they're just running out the contract on these deals.
Quite possibly that it could be, just providing existing value for the existing deal, but we'll see.
But like you, I love the New York Liberty uniforms. Like, that is a top-notch design, and across all three, the white, the dark, and the other dark uniform, Paul, to use your terminology. They all feel like they're part of the same set, right?
They do. They feel unified.
They feel unified.
They do. What a concept! It feels like a coherent, top to bottom, integrated set. And the one that doesn't say New York or Liberty says equality, with the torch of liberty from the Statue of Liberty standing in for the I, the letter I in equality, which is a really nice design.
It is. It's a good touch. I like now I'm not sure if I like the design, but I love the symbolism behind the Washington Mystics Rebel Edition. Sorry, Paul. I don't know what else to call it. But alternate. Okay, we'll go with alternate. It's a navy blue jersey, and it says "Rise" across the front, and it's designed with what looks to be like a jagged stripe that goes from the upper left shoulder to the bottom right side, and it cuts across the front. And you look at it, okay, why is that design in there? And what it is the path that the protesters take on the National Mall to get to the Capitol or to the White House or wherever protesters go in Washington. And then it also has the inscription of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote back in 1920, written within a white stripe that follows this pink stripe. Just super heavy on symbolism and how powerful that is in a, probably the top tier women's professional sports league out there for them to do. So I'm cheering that on. I think it's great to see the WNBA doing this, and for Nike, stepping up their game and giving WNBA athletes a uniform that they can really feel proud of wearing.
And also, because this is the 25th anniversary season, all these jerseys will have a little 25 patch.
Yeah, and that's a unique design too in itself, right? It's a combination of Roman numerals and tally marks, which
very strange design. So it's like two X's for 20, and then tally marks, which are those things you make when you're like writing down like four vertical lines and then a diagonal cross.
Right.
So it's XX and then a tally mark for 5. A very strange combination of symbols,
but it looks great. So kudos to whoever came up with that concept. Thinking outside the box. So simple, but so different. Good job. And
our last topic is the ongoing saga of the Atlanta Braves and their memorials. And I'm not sure if everybody cares about this as much as I do, but I've been following for months now, since before the baseball season. I was wondering, what are the Braves going to do with all their patches? Because we knew they were going to have a patch for the All-Star game, a patch for their 150th anniversary. Then Henry Aaron died and Phil Niekro died. And like, where are they going to fit memorial patches when they already have those other 2 sleeve patches? They decided to put teeny tiny memorial patches for Aaron and Necro on the back of their caps, which, as we discussed last week, was we believe is the first ever memorial patch on a cap for a season-long memorial tribute. And then, of course, after one game, the day after opening day, Major League Baseball pulled the All-Star game out of Atlanta. So that meant that the Braves removed, or at least initially covered up, the All-Star game patch. And everybody was thinking, or at least I was thinking, okay, are they going to give Hank Aaron and Phil Necro proper sleeve memorials now? And the thought was, if they did it, it would happen last Friday, April 9th, when they opened their first homestand. And instead, what they chose to do, with no real advanced promotion, they had kept this under wraps pretty well. They have been wearing 1970s throwbacks, and that's what's often known as the feather design, because it has that feather on the sleeves. And that's a uniform worn by both Aaron and Necro in the 70s. They've been wearing that for their entire first homestand. They don't have any sleeve patches, not even the 150th anniversary patch on that uniform, which makes sense because sleeve patches don't really work with that feather sleeve. Like, it would conflict with the feather, basically. And so they haven't really said what they're going to do about the memorial patches. They said they were wearing this uniform for Aaron and Necro for the first home. So they said specifically it was a memorial tribute. This Friday, I believe, they will be going back on the road for their next road trip. And all eyes, or at least all eyes here at UniWatch headquarters, will be watching to see if they have put proper sleeve memorials on for Aaron and Necro. And so it's just an interest for me. It's like one of these like weird little sagas of they're going to have a sort of patch-o-rama, patch traffic jam situation. They handled it with this unusual cap approach. Then suddenly this real estate opened up on their sleeve because the All-Star game patch isn't there anymore. I'm wondering to see what happens. Chris, do you care about any of this, or is it just me?
Oh, of course I care about this. This is huge for me. And in fact, the first thing I thought of when the All-Star game was moved out of Atlanta wasn't where's the game going or how weird is this? It's okay, put the patch on now for Aaron and Necro. That was my very first thought. Now that we have, like, what is this? Since Friday, they've been wearing the throwback uniforms. Is that right?
Yeah, since the 9th, yeah.
And so Friday, which is the day after this airs, is going to be their first day on the road. Yes, it gives them a whole week to figure out what they're doing, right? That's right. A week to rip off the All-Star game patch. That's a week to produce memorial patches. And memorial patches aren't like anniversary and All-Star game patches. They aren't mass produced. They're not sent to a retail. They're not sold. So that's the sort of thing you can produce for 25 players and X amount of coaches quite easily and quite quickly. So I would be stunned if they didn't have a double memorial patch when they played on Friday. Wouldn't you?
I would be surprised, yeah. And I'm hoping they do it because obviously Henry Aaron deserves it and Phil Necro deserves it too. Yeah. And then the other sort of subplot to this is that the All-Star game has been relocated to Colorado. And so far, at least, the Rockies have not started wearing an All-Star game patch of their own. Now, they wouldn't wear the same one that the Braves had been wearing because that one was Atlanta specific. It had the Braves logo. It showed like the architecture of their stadium. You would not have the Rockies wearing that patch, but you could come up with a new design, like some sort of generic All-Star or something specific to the Rockies, whatever. You could come up with some new design and a new patch and have them wear it. And I have asked the Rockies about this, and they are usually very happy to engage with me on uniform questions, but I have not received a response on this one.
Ooh. This might be something you have to reach out to Major League Baseball on, because I think that is a MLB thing. That MLB handles the All-Star game 100%. I have seen a sort of a placeholder logo they've been using. It's just like some scripted All-Star game mark that's in purple and silver. I don't know if they're actually going to get a patch on their jersey, right? It feels like the time is so compressed, and they're going to want something that they can sell. They're going to want something, that's going to look nice. So maybe we should reach.
They have to have some kind of patch, if not for the Rockies, then for the players in the game itself,
right?
Because everyone in the game wears an All-Star game patch.
Maybe it'll be like it was. When did they start wearing the All-Star game patch in the game? Like 78. or 81. Like
That's a
it's
good.
back
I don't
then.
remember. But
So
yeah, that's a good point. That it hasn't always been. It's been the case for a long time, but
it
it wasn't
has, yeah.
always the case. Yeah.
Throughout my entire life, it has been the case. But
Yeah.
yeah, so if there's no patch, I don't think it's the end of the world. They could probably put all the decoration on the uniforms that they were going to do anyways. Like sometimes they put like the star with the number of
Right.
appearances
Right.
or the stars behind the Batterman logo on the back. They
Mhm.
can still get away with that if they don't have a Denver specific All-Star game logo in time. That might be what we see. And I mean, you brought this up last week about the batting practice home run derby uniforms. To me, that's what I'm going to be watching for. Whether they're wearing the Braves ones or maybe they just have the players go out wearing their usual batting practice uniforms this year.
Right. Because and for people who don't know, the batting practice and home run derby jerseys surrounding the All-Star game are usually themed to match or evoke the home team in some way.
Right.
And whatever the design was that had been planned for Atlanta has presumably been produced and is in the retail pipeline and all the rest. And is there time to produce one, either a generic one or a Colorado specific one? Probably not.
Yeah.
So what are they going to end up doing for that? And so that I guess is the last subplot relating to all of this.
Now, I correct me if I'm wrong. I think the last home run derby they just had them wear their regular team uniforms. I'm trying to remember.
Right. I think you're right. Yeah. But that I think in part.
That was in 19.
No, right. That was in 29. I was going to say it was a COVID thing, but no, that wasn't why. There was no home run derby.
And I think because I talked to MLB about this, and it's all coming back to me now, Paul. And they wanted to showcase the individual team uniforms because they thought the home run derby was the big stage. And it's like the idea of the players wearing their actual jerseys in the game, where they actually wanted it. But they still wear they're still practice uniforms. They wear them for it's like workout Saturday or something.
Right. Yeah. And for media availability and that.
Yeah. And then there's like celebrity all-star game. And yeah, so hey, I went to the celebrity all-star game one year.
Did you?
Do I want to tell the story? I got yelled at by
story.
I got yelled at by Kenny Lofton.
For what?
So this is my very first time going to an all-star game. I had media credentials. My feeling is usually I just don't want to be in the way when I'm at these things.
Where was this? What
this was in Cleveland in 2019, and I was on the field. I got yelled at by fans because I was standing in the way. So I knelt down and had my knees on the crushed warning track for 6 innings. And then, okay, I'm trying to get out of here. I don't want to be in the way. I hop into the stands and there's a big line of people all trying to exit the stands at the same time. I look behind me. Kenny Lofton has jumped into the crowd behind me and he's trying to get to, I guess, a family member 2 or 3 rows up. Everyone's swarming Kenny. And Kenny can't get by because I'm at the end of this long line. And I feel him pushing me on the back, push. And he goes, move it. And I turn around and I say, cool it, Kenny.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, little back talk from Chris Creamer.
Don't push me. It's not my fault. There's a big line of people up here. And then, of course, he finally gets around me and gets to see the people. And I go, I just yelled at Kenny Lofton.
Wow. When you introduced the story, you said you made it sound like he yelled at you, but I think the real story is that you yelled at him.
He was pushing me. Get out of my space, Kenny. I don't care if you're an all-star.
That's a great story. I did not know that story.
I've never shared it with anybody.
Wow. And I have no all-star game story to tell, sadly. But I do have a message to read, which is that this episode of Unified is brought to you in part by Ebbets Flannels, the leader in vintage authentic sports apparel since 1988. To put that in some perspective, the first pro sports throwback game didn't even happen until 1990. But by that time, our friends at Ebbets Flannels were already setting the pace for authentic retro sportswear. And when we say our friends, we really mean it. Chris and I have worked with Jerry Cohen, Andy Hyman, and the other great people at Ebbets Flannels for years. Ebbets even makes my official UniWatch baseball caps, and they're fantastic. They're great people, and of course, they make and sell sensational products, including authentic vintage jerseys, caps, t-shirts, jackets, and more. Check them out at ebbets.com. That's EBBETS.com. And get 10% off any merchandise except NFL items by using the checkout code UNIFIED. Again, that's ebbets.com and get 10% off anything except NFL items with the checkout code UNIFIED.
It's time for question of the week, Paul.
Chris, I love question of the week.
And you told me
hit me with question of the week.
Well, you told me to surprise you this week. So
and the truth, folks, is that we often sort of coordinate and say, do we want to do this question or that question? But this week I told Chris to surprise me. So I do not know what's coming.
Well, neither do I, because I put all the questions into this Arizona Cardinals souvenir helmet. And I am going to draw one. Let's see. I don't know what we're going to get. Hope it's a good one. Okay.
I love this.
Let's see. It's a good question, Paul.
All right.
First of all, it comes from Jay Wright from Twitter at J_Wright20. What is your favorite uniform from a mythical team in a movie or TV show?
Oh, I think I would go. This is a movie, I think from the 70s or 80s. It's called Bingo Long's Traveling All-Stars. And it was about a Negro Leagues team, like a barnstorming Negro Leagues team. And they wore sort of an early Negro Leagues version of like an Astros Tequila Sunrise. It was very colorful, very splashy, very bright. And of course, when we think of Negro Leagues uniforms, we see mainly like black and white photos, right? And occasional modern throwback games. But this was really bright and it's a fantastic movie too, really fun movie. And I would recommend it to anyone. Bingo Long's Traveling All-Stars, and just tremendous uniforms and great movie. And I love that question. And I can't wait to hear your answer to it.
Oh, well, it's probably going to be a little more boring than that. I had no idea that uniform or that movie existed.
You should check it out, man. It's a good movie.
I really want to. I'm a traditionalist, of course. I like the Charleston Chiefs and Slapshot. That it feels like a real uniform. Well, it is a real uniform. It's based off of the Jamestown Jets in the Johnstown Jets. Thank you very much. I also like the New York Knights in The Natural. There was also a TV series, I don't know if it was a Canadian show or not, about a fictional Major League Baseball team called the Pioneers. And their uniform wasn't anything special, but that was really cool to me, watching an expansion team in a show. The show was called Hardball, I think. And it was a very sort of no nonsense, like Pioneers arched in red, I think, on a white jersey. And their mascot was like a Davy Crockett looking baseball. Kind of like Mr. Met. I like that as well. I like a lot of fictional uniforms, especially anything that has to do with an expansion team or a fake team in a real league, and seeing those fake uniforms against real teams. Yeah.
Also, as a uniform moment in a movie, I love in the first Rocky movie where Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, he goes into the arena just to sort of look around, and it's the night before the big fight against Apollo Creed. And the promoter, I can't remember his name, is there. And he says, Rocky, what are you doing here? And he says, well, I just wanted to look around. And there's big banners of both fighters, like a big banner of Apollo Creed and a big banner of Rocky. And I forget if I think it shows, the banner shows Rocky wearing red trunks with a white stripe. And he says to the promoter, oh, it's wrong. I'm going to be wearing white trunks with a red stripe. And the promoter just sort of gives him this patronizing smile and says, doesn't matter that much, does it? Or he said, like, well, I'm sorry, but it's not that big a deal, is it?
Yeah.
And of course it's a big deal. Like, it's your uniform. Like, get it right. Of course it's a big deal. And even as a kid, I was like 12 years old, 13, something like that, when Rocky came out. And like, that really struck me then. Like, of course it's a big deal. How could you get that wrong?
Imagine if they got the colors wrong on Apollo Creed's U.S. flag trunks in that movie.
Yeah. Now I get the point of the scene is that, like, Rocky is basically an afterthought to the whole fight. Like, they don't really care about him. But it really stuck with me, like this idea that, like, they couldn't get his trunks right.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love that scene. Oh my God. Paul, we didn't have a main topic this episode, but we still did it.
Yeah, no main topic, and yet a lot to talk about. And I think there may be a lot of weeks like this where if we don't have a big overarching theme, there's still plenty to talk about. So good to see for ourselves and to show our listeners that there's a lot of different ways to approach an episode.
And we even cut some things, right? There were some topics that we thought about talking about. We're like, we don't have time, right? Yeah. So there's never a dull week in the uni world, Paul.
Indeed. The universe.
The universe. Yeah. Shall I read us out?
Please do.
Okay. Well, Paul, it's been another great week talking with you about uniforms. But before we go, I'd like to point out that Unified is a joint production of UniWatch and SportsLogos.Net. We would like to thank our producer, editor, Chris Fratterigo. Thank you so much, Chris, for helping us with this. You can get show notes for this episode, which are available at our website, unified.show. You can follow us on Twitter at UnifiedCast, where you can submit your questions for Question of the Week and have it added to our Arizona Cardinals helmet for the draw next week. And you can also learn about the t-shirts and stickers we have for sale featuring our logo, which is by Brian Gundel. Our theme music is by Chuck Rios this week. You could also, I have a book. Does anyone know about my book? Paul, did you know I have a book? Okay. Co-authored by with Todd Radom. You can order that book, Fabric of the Game, at fabricofthegamebook.com. Signed editions there. If you're listening to us on audio, you can see us on video at youtube.com/sportslogos. The animation at the start of that video is by Michael Princip. To submit a question for Question of the Week, I mentioned you can send us a message on Twitter. You can also send us a message at info@unified.show. That's also the place to go if you would like to inquire about advertising or just to chat with us. If you like our show, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. That is it for episode 11, Paul. Stay well, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Hold on. So let me just read this.
Yeah, you want to.
Sometimes I read this and there's like a typo and it just throws me right off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And no, don't worry about it. And no, it's not because there's not a U in favorite or anything.
Canadian script.
That's right. I need a Canadian script, fellas. Let's see.